Joining us now live from Kyiv, CNN's Matthew Chance. And Matthew, you and your team exclusively witnessed a confrontation today at an airfield outside Kyiv. Tell us what happened and what it tells you about Ukraine's chances of keeping control of its own capital.
Yeah, I mean, it was astonishing, but it was unexpected as well, because we were making our way to an airfield near the capital, Kyiv, just on the outskirts of it, that had been attacked. We knew there had been fighting there over the course of the previous hours. It's an essential airbase that the Russian special forces, we understood, had been dropped there to seize in order to establish a bridgehead so they could bring in more forces. So we went there. There was a checkpoint at the gates. I was told by Ukrainian officials that the Ukrainians had it back under control after fierce fighting. And I spent some time talking with the soldiers outside, saying, who is it that's in control right now? I said to the commanding officer in my broken Russian, and he said, it's the Russians that are in control. And I said, okay, so where are the Russians then? And he said, we're the Russians, which was incredible, because it was we thought they were Ukrainian forces. I looked at their insignia and suddenly realized that, we had stumbled upon and we'd encountered that forward group of Russian special forces that had been put into that base just a few hours before by helicopter, had engaged in fierce fighting, and were now facing a counterattack from the Ukrainian military. At that point, we stepped away and witnessed this.
The corner. Keep inside, keep inside.
In here, against the
How
wall.
how can I find it?
Right. Keep chill.
Focus. Should we run that way?
Right. We've got to be mindful of the driver as well, okay? Let's move down this way against the wall.
Down.
I need to check
Keep down, keep down, keep down.
I need you to check my entire feet.
It's okay, keep chill.
All right, well, that was a very dramatic outburst there. Gunfire at an enemy we didn't see. We assume it was, some kind of threat that they felt from perhaps a counteroffensive. I've been told by Ukrainian officials that there was a counteroffensive underway just before we got there. Remember, that airfield, that airbase is absolutely essential if Russian forces are going to establish a bridgehead to bring in more troops, more equipment, to encircle the capital and potentially take the entire city of Kyiv, take it over. Jake.
And Matthew, earlier today, you called the idea of a military confrontation between the Russians and Ukrainians near the Chernobyl nuclear exclusion zone. You called it, quote, quite frankly terrifying, obviously because of all the unknowns about what might happen if that radioactive material were disturbed. Do we have any idea why Russia might want control of Chernobyl? Is it just another piece of territory, or is there something more to it than that?
I mean, I've been thinking about that a little bit, and it's difficult to say, but I mean, the obvious answer is the geographical location of it. It's not far from Kyiv, but it's also on the border of Belarus, so it's a bit of open territory, which, even though it's contaminated terribly, of course, still with radioactive material, it is territory that gives access to Ukraine from the north, from Belarus. There was also a lot of speculation in the Russian media, particularly before this invasion happened, that Chernobyl could be a potentially dangerous place where an ecological disaster could be sparked if there is fierce fighting around there. The Russians were right about that. Ukrainians have been expressing their concern about that as well. That's why I said it was so terrifying that there's a potentially dangerous military confrontation around that nuclear reactor, which is currently housed in a sarcophagus made out of concrete to try and limit any further damage that could be caused by it. Of course, if it does become the focus of a strong military confrontation between these two armies, that could kick up all sorts of horrific radioactive material and cause that massive catastrophe to repeat itself all over again. And I think probably it's fair to say neither side want that.